Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. So, it is March, and it happens to be March 14th, 3 days away from St. Patty's Day. And you know that I was just going to have to do a proper mystery review that is Irish, so near to St. Patty's Day. One that yielded a bunch of hints if you follow me on Twitter. And yeah, so Mystery Review 86, which I do believe is or can be divided into 14. The hints given were sequel to 14. Now, if you have been paying attention to all of my mystery reviews, you would know what 14 or which mystery review 14 was. It happened to have Mara Jade or Jade Shadow. She came on. We talked about it. It's one of our favorite movies, and it just so happens to coincide that we're going to be discussing this very same film that I'm discussing today tomorrow night on her channel. So, other hints included, that's an arm, silver peso, and La Raza. So, if you haven't figured it out, it is Boondocks Saints 2, All Saints Day, Director's Cut. I was originally going to give another hint that said Black Cat, to see if anybody would have figured it out with the Black Cat tag, because the director's cut of Boondock Saints has a black cat throughout the film that the brothers are kind of freaked out over because it just keeps on showing up everywhere. So, that being said, let me say hello to the chat. We got Vanya in the chat and Neozoic. Good to see you. So, and yep, it is indeed. Hello there, General Kenobi. That's how you say, or that is the only legitimate response to when somebody says hello there, you'd say General Kenobi. That's the only legitimate response. Or you beep like R2. Those are the only two legitimate responses. So, yes, Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. And this movie, 10 years, or made 9 to 10 years later, however, 8 years passed in the film. So, this movie is indeed a great movie. It's a sequel to a cult classic. Now, the first movie couldn't have or wasn't released in theaters because shortly or during the time of the making of the film and upon close to release, Columbine, the school shooting in Columbine happened. So, they couldn't release that movie, or they couldn't release the first one in theaters. However, this one did get a theatrical release. My brother and I actually went to see this movie in theaters, and we enjoyed it. I mean, I am a Boondock Saints fan through and through. I absolutely love them. And tonight, I'll show off my Equitas Veritas cross that I have. And I'm actually going to be getting the rosary next month. So, yeah. Looking forward to that. But, yeah, Boondock Saints. This movie has a hilarious cast. We got Sean Patrick Flannery, Billy Connolly, Norman Reedus coming back as the Saints. And we got the 3 detectives coming back. And we got new faces. Julie Benz as Eunice Bloom. Peter Fonda, who comes by later in the film. And Judd Nelson, who plays frickin' Concezio Iacovetta. Now, the plot holes of the theatrical edition have some things explained in the director's cut. However, the director's cut still has some bad cutting decisions where they decide to insert scenes, interrupt scenes even. And but some of the decisions are also well done because they allow for the additional context. However, I do feel that they could have taken a couple things out. You also see alternate cuts of scenes, like or to give a good example, when Gorgeous George has the gun pulled on him when he's butt naked in the massage parlor, you see the shot where it's basic profile, like where she's holding the gun up and she says, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" Where in this, the camera is literally like this, where the gun is being held up and it's like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" Um, there was an announcement. Sorry, folks. It's like Neozoic. Wait, please, dude, don't fuck with me on this. You better freaking you better, if you're on Twitter, dude, you had better freaking send me a DM on Twitter with the announcement of Boondock Saints 3. Because if there is an announcement for BDS 3, I am there. Holy shit. I am there, man. I would love to finally see a Boondock Saints 3 movie. But yeah. And they even though Billy Connolly's character in this movie bites it, I really do think they should have you need his voice in this movie. Or if they do a Boondock Saints 3. But yes, there are some alternate cuts. There are a lot of the scenes are extended. The one thing I do have a critique on when it comes to Movies Anywhere, where I have this movie stored along with on Vudu, if you're watching the extended edition, which is connected to the theatrical edition, it's one of the special features on Movies Anywhere. They don't have the translation text to when people are speaking in either Italian, Mexican, or French. And it's like, you might want to put some of that in for those of us who don't know what you're saying. However, some of the stuff that has been said, because I've seen this movie enough times, if I watched, or there's additional dialogue that's not in English. However, most of the stuff that I've seen in the movie, which has the dialogue that's not in English, most of it is in the theatrical, so therefore I do know the translations because I've seen the movie enough times. However, this movie does a wonderful job in connecting the old and the new, adding a little bit more background into El Duce, the Duke, or in this movie is known as Pop or Papa. According to Troy Duffy, Boondock Saints 3 began filming May of last year. As for release day, I'm not sure. Son of a bitch. Nice. Finally. I can't wait. The Irish in me is tingling. Anyway. So, getting on with it. 10 years after the cult classic, but 8 years in the film, the McManus brothers are back. Troy Duffy returns with David Del Rocco, Sean Patrick Flannery. Now, David Del Rocco is only in two parts of this movie, and mentioned in a third part of this movie with the flashback. But this movie is so great. It opens up with the David Del Rocco walking through quiet downtown Boston. Not a lot of people around where he gets to film it, and it's the "Are you a talker or a doer?" speech. Now he's like, "There's two types of people in this world when you boil it all down. You got your talkers and your doers. Most people are talkers. All they do is talk. But it's the doers that change the world. And when they do that, they change us." And it is just such a great freaking line because it's also very fitting of Rocco's character. He's like, or at the end, it's like, "Believe you me, all the rest of it is coffeehouse bullshit." I mean, one of the things I absolutely love about the Boondock Saints films, especially the first one and the second one, they do not shy away from what today is considered taboo. If you say the wrong words or racial slurs in films, you will get your ass crucified in today's time. I'm hoping and praying that Troy Duffy does not shy away from that in the third film, if indeed a third film is happening. I mean, if it's happening, then or if it's filming was started in May of last year, then I'm guessing it's already been done and they're just waiting for a time to release. But holy crap, man, I am hoping and praying that they do not shy away from the same formula that they have had over 1999's and 2009's films, because today's culture where they're doing all this woke bullshit and fucking dodging all the gamer words, as some people like to call them. I mean, you need that in Boondock Saints. That's what one of the draws for that film. This film is not for SJWs. SJWs can get the fuck out, because honestly, they're going to be upset over every aspect of the films. I mean, the first film dropped the hard R N word. The second film drops the racial slurs for Mexicans and Italians. And so, yeah, I am going to be using those words in the quotation purposes, folks. So do not at me. Do not be saying you can't say that shit. I'm only quoting the film in the certain context. So, yeah. How would I compare Norman Reedus' role in Boondock Saints with his other roles, such as Daryl Dixon, Walking Dead, Scud from Blade 2? Scud from Blade 2 was a good role. I never really got into the Walking Dead Neozoic. However, I did see a few episodes of it. Apparently, he played Michael Rooker's brother. And apparently, he's a badass. He's a fan favorite, so I'm guessing a lot of people liked him. But his role in this, you hear his accent slip a lot. That's another one of the objective flaws in this film. Now, this film is indeed objectively flawed, this movie is absolutely one of my favorite movies of franchise-wise. So, getting into the talking points, after the title sequence, or after the introduction to Rocco and his coffeehouse bullshit speech, we get an introduction to Ireland, where the brothers are living a peaceful life there with their father, played by the awesome comedian Billy Connolly. And he comes out with the line, "Peace, they say, is the enemy of memory. So too had it been for my boys." And you get the small reminders of what they did and how they essentially just disappeared after the events of the last movie. Cameron Ryder, good to see you. And no joke, they have Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus looking like Jesus Christ. Full long hair and beards. The white Jesus Christ, because I'm not getting into the whole is Jesus black thing. I don't care about that sort of debate. But you see these guys and they essentially do look like Jesus Christ. The stereotypical pictorial of him. And they live on a sheep farm. And it's a peaceful life in Ireland, you know? Now, there's this one scrap of Canada, because they couldn't film it in Ireland. They took this one scrap of land in Canada and happened to make it look like Ireland. And they did a wonderful job with it. And the narration of Billy Connolly's character, Papa, or Il Duce, where he's saying, "Peace, they say, is the enemy of memory. So too has it been for my boys." The past weighed heavy on them, and yet, as if a day had gone or hadn't gone by, it was back. I could feel it heavy in their presence and whatnot, or how they acted. You could actually see how they were suddenly restless, how they were quickly eating, and how you just understand exactly what he means when he says, "I can feel it heavy in their presence." Something is calling them back. Something is reaching out to call them back to what they once were, which were the saints, those vigilantes who had received a call from higher power to do what they did. Now, folks, do I condone vigilantism? For legal purposes, I'm going to say no. But no, I don't support vigilantism unless it is 100% absolutely necessary. And with this country going on or on its way to hell the way it is, I'll leave it there. Anyway, a priest shows up, and you also get the intercut between what's going on in Boston, where an assassin has entered a church and kills a priest in the same fashion of the saints. And this priest is explaining it to the boys, and they knew of the victim, the priest that got killed. And he was a good man. And one thing that the saints absolutely do not abide is that good men die. Now, another thing that basically sets him off is that the fact that it was a priest and it was made to look like them. This is indeed a frame job. And I absolutely love Billy Connolly's. Every time Billy Connolly spoke in this film, it was great. Because Billy Connolly is Billy Connolly. You just can't get better than him when it comes to Il Duce, his portrayal as Il Duce. And he tells him, he's like, or the other guy's like, we should hold off before we do anything. It could be just somebody trying to get away with murder here. Well, and there's a thousand ways to do that. And then he tells the trees, trust me. But you kill a priest in a church and you make it look like it was them. That would bring them back with a vengeance. Somebody's trying to call them out. And they think it's really clever. There's just one problem with this little plan. It worked. I love that whole freaking speech, man. I'm not familiar with the Boondocks Saints series. No disrespect, man. None at all. I can actually provide some of the background in this because I'm actually going to be doing it. And I want to tell you guys one of my favorite things to the behind the scenes of this movie. However, I'm going to give it over to Mara Jade's channel. I can tell you about the contest winner skit that somebody did, or that the cast member or one of the cast members did. However, I'm going to save that for Mara Jade's channel. If you guys want to see or hear about it, I'm going to tell it on Mara's channel tomorrow night around 8 o'clock is when the stream is. Look for her channel, Jade Shadow, on YouTube. She does great content. She's like me, or me and her do the ones and twos on her channel. So I will actually sacrifice it on this channel. I will not put it on this channel. I will tell it on her channel. Because believe me, I cannot wait to hear her reaction. I'm pretty sure she probably knows what it is. But for you guys, you need to know if you don't already. So I will tell you it tomorrow on her channel. So we get the boys digging up their chests, their trunks, their rosaries, their guns. They clean their guns, and you get the shower scenes with their ass shots for the ladies. Hey, Cassie, how you doing? I'm doing as good as can be. I'm sucking down water laced with lemon juice to help with the kidney stone problem that I'm having, and haven't had a problem with that for the last couple of days. So I'm hoping it's getting better, but the pain is yet to come. Believe me, the worst of it happens later. But yeah, Cult Classic Cage, folks, she's also great, people. She does watch parties on her channel. I couldn't make it for the clowns. I'm sorry for that, Cassie. Had family night with the family, so yeah. But yeah, I'm or it will pass eventually. The lemon will help disintegrate it, but I'm also hoping that I can get it blasted or at the hospital. But need the doctors to actually call in for that. So yeah. Anyway, cannoli, Sasquatch, dude, Squatch, love you. How you doing, Bob? Yep, indeed. But yes, getting back to Boondock Saints 3, the shears. The one good touch that they did with the scene where they're getting ready, besides the shower scene with the ladies or for the ladies, because you get ass shots of Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flannery and the gay guys out there. I'm pretty sure Daniel James wouldn't have a problem with it either. Any of you guys don't know who Daniel James is? He's one, or he's from Australia. He's also a nice supporter of the channel and whatnot. But anyway, these guys are using wool shears to cut their hair and their beards and whatnot, and the tattoos on their backs. Sean Patrick Flannery has the upper part of the crucifix on his back, and Norman Reedus has the lower or Christ's feet on his back. And it's like, holy crap, dude! These tattoos, if they were real, because they weren't, they were explained that they were not real. They had to be touched up whenever, or like every few minutes, or for cuts, because if you're sweating or you're running water over them, like they were in the shower scene, they would fade and whatnot. You could actually, or watching that scene, you can actually see the water kind of discolor with the ink if you pay close attention. But yeah, the director's cut of this film actually shows the priest a little bit more, the one that reported to the boys about the priest in Boston getting killed. He's like, for Christ's sake, if you're not going to talk any sense into him, I will. And then he pulls off his collar, and then the boys come in. And I just love Billy Connolly. He's like, basically saying, okay, what you going to do? Huh? What you going to say to him? You go right ahead and try to talk. You try talking sense into them. Well, the priest shut himself down really quick. He's like, so what are you going to do? Every last motherfucker that had anything to do with it. How would I compare Boondock Saints 1 and 2 with other vigilante films such as Death Wish, 74, Dirty Harry, Taxi Driver, and The Crow? The Crow is always going to be top tier. Not just because Brandon Lee died, but because that movie was well made. I believe I also did a mystery review for that one. But Boondock Saints 1 and 2, these are unfiltered movies. They are where Death Wish, 1974, the Death Wish series of movies back in the 70s and 80s, they were heavy with the female sexual assault stuff and giving or that at the time those were, or that was kind of like the best motivation for vigilantism at the time. I'm not saying that it's condoned in any shape, way, or form, folks, but that, or Taxi Driver, never seen. Dirty Harry, I think I've seen only once. But these movies, when it comes to vigilantism, these are, or the first one was an independent film. The second one actually had a budget behind it. And I think it was because of the budget or the studio behind it that it didn't come out as best as it could have, you know? Gonna have to watch that later. Somebody just sent me Terminator versus Batman. That's interesting. Thoughts on Sarah Michelle Gellar? Kamen Rider? Why am I being asked about Sarah Michelle Gellar? I mean, I know I've been watching the Buffy the Vampire Slayer series just to see if it's any good, but I think she's a good actress. I don't know what could have prompted this question, though. But anyway, as a vigilante movie goes, it's up there. These two movies are up there. So the brothers are now on their way, and let me get back to, or we then see what's going on in Brooklyn. Dolly, Duffy, and Greenlee. Hello, Orange Hat. Good to see you, Ruben. And how are you? Just letting you know, 5 days to your birthday. 5 days, dude. If I'm not live in 5 days, happy birthday. Everybody, give him a happy birthday in the chat. Show some respect for Ruben. He's one of the he's one of my favorite supporters, because he comes in, he does, or he's one of the more loyal supporters. he comes in, I can always expect him in my comment section. Apparently, she became another. Well, at least I could say she did some good acting in the 90s and 2000s. I'll say that. As for what she is now, I couldn't care less. What most actors nowadays should do is stick to acting and shut the fuck up about everything else, because they honestly have no right to preach how to live. Not with all that money. Anyway, Dolly, Duffy, and Greenlee, man, they're freaking out because if you don't know from Boondock Saints 1, they helped with the final kill in the last movie where they were basically accessories to murder. We also learned that Smecker, played by Willem Dafoe, is dead, and Eunice Bloom, played by Julie Benz, is handpicked by Smecker and is an authority on the Saints case. And then we get a cut to the boys watching Romeo fight a Frenchman. Now, if I remember correctly, the boys or the case was not cut in between Eunice's introduction and the fight between Raza, or with Raza and the Frenchman. I believe that they investigate, or they brought her out, or they brought her in because this whole scene was cut down a lot. They cut a lot out of the investigation of the first, or of the priest. Now, in this film, they add a lot more in. You see the fight with Clifton Collins Jr. Great actor in this movie, man. I absolutely love how he fights this French guy. They actually they put manacles on him behind his back, and he's got to fight this guy. And he's like, "Don't worry, man. Mexican guys are toughest motherfuckers on earth. Think about it. Tabasco sauce? What kind of fucked up people would even invent that shit?" I mean, he's just freaking taunting the hell out of this Frenchman who can't hit him because he's freaking dodging and weaving and bobbing and weaving and whatnot. Then he runs and jumps up and gets the manacles on or in front of him. He's like, "Don't worry now, I can't hit you." And then he grabs the dude, wraps him in the chain. He's like, "Oh, loophole, bitch. I should have been a lawyer." I mean, you get such great freaking lines from Clifton Collins in this movie. Now, there are some, or he ends up winning against the French guy, and the French guy's friends on the boat. This is a cargo ship where there's illegal, or that's also doing illegal trafficking and whatnot. So these guys are basically working their way through to get to the U.S. as is Romeo, or La Raza as they call him, but his name's Romeo. And there's added scenes to this, which is so great because the way that they cut it, one scene is not, or connects to a different scene, but in this film, they're two separate scenes, which is nice. So after the fight, we get the cut to the introduction of Eunice Bloom. And Eunice Bloom, I absolutely love. She's like, "Now, they could have brought anybody in this. Why do you think they brought me?" "Well, since we already broke the fuck barrier, let me be blunt. It is because I am so fucking smart that I make smart people feel like they are retarded." And that's like, oh, I love this woman already. She uses all the right words because, folks, she's not afraid to use those fucking words. And you can't be afraid to freaking offend anybody. And I absolutely love how Troy Duffy is not fucking afraid to offend anybody in this freaking film. So, yes. She goes in and she's looking, and she gives the whole Smecker walk around, kind of like Smecker did. And she then takes her earplugs out. It wasn't them, but I'm pretty sure you already knew that. Now, this scene is also extended where it's like, don't fit the two V's, victim and venue, as the Saints, where the victim and venue is somewhere else that's not in the church, but the victim is criminals. All their victims were criminals. Clearly not the case here. So, with all due respect, we'll see you later, Ancient Bloom. I mean, Dolly is freaking out he's freaking out the most. Greenlee's horny as fuck because Eunice Bloom is played by Julie Benz, and Julie Benz is one of the freaking hottest women out there at the time. And David's also, or Greenlee is also played by a comedian too, I do believe. I can't remember his name. But Duffy is the one that is keeping his head the best. Guessing he made third grade detective, where the other two are still stuck at first or first, whichever it is. I think it goes up in the ladder, the higher the number. But anyway, I'm guessing he has seniority. But there is just so much things in there, man. This movie does a great job in pissing people off. Let's just say that. So after the investigation, you get a news report how the public is split down the middle. It's like, or how some of them think the Saints did it, how some of them don't. And we then see them back on the boat as the boys are sleeping. You get this memory of the boys killing a wolf and another narration of Pop about the or about how the sheep can, or how shepherds and, or sheep and a wolf, something around there. I can't remember it specifically. Sorry about that, folks. I should have written it in the dang things. I should have written all the quotes from Pop in this movie. But anyway, the film, or the scene, shows the two boys and their father surrounded by a bonfire sticks that are lit up. Now, folks, do not take this the wrong way. The proper term for this whole situation is they were surrounding a faggot, or a burning faggot. Faggot meaning sticks wrapped up with string. So do not take it the wrong way. I use the proper terminology. I do not use it in a derogatory sense. Now, not saying that this movie doesn't use it in a derogatory sense. So, but yes, it shows them killing a wolf that's attacking the herd of sheep that they were shepherding. And they take the wolf's carcass and throw it onto the fire and burn it. And you also see the burning skull and whatnot. It is that is a great shot, the burning skull of the wolf. And you just see that these boys their calling has come back even before that, which is a nice little shot. So then we get the news of Concesio Iacovetta, where they are cleaning up some of their stuff in their little area of the ship, and they hear the news of Concesio Iacovetta, and we get the cut to Concesio and his leader, or his top man. He's the inept son of Papa Joe from the first movie. Now, the rest of the family is upset because he called out the Saints. He had the priest killed. And they're like, dude, you're bringing the devil right back to our doorstep. What the fuck is wrong with you, And one of the things I love about Judd Nelson, the criminal from Breakfast Club, he plays this role so well. The dude cannot freaking... His sense of vocabulary is just so freaking wrong. Let's recapitulate instead of recap. Let's recapitulate. And he says all these weird made-up words. Judd Nelson just plays this so great, man. There's different dialogue where in the theatrical film he says, "These sons of bitches prison fucked us," where in the director's cut he says, "These sons of bitches donkey punched us in the ass." And it's just so great, the scene. I even made a meme or a gif out of it where he says, "Fuck him," and then smacks the dude with salami. And I turned it into, well, fuck him. But it works out in a different way because he's like, as for the Saints doting fans, fuck them, and then smacks the dude. But it worked out how I got it. I mean, I have a thing on Giphy, or a collection on Giphy that has Boondock Saints 1 and 2 memes or GIFs. But yeah, so he's telling them that he wants them killed because they killed his father in public. They publicly executed him. Now, the last words of Papa Joe Iacovetta were Bonfacuro, which is the basically saying "fuck you" in Italian, and that plays a part later on in this film. So we then, or there's one, or the reason why the one guy got smacked in the face with the sausage was because he corrected Concesio, because Concesio was trying to say serendipitous, but he wasn't able to think of what the word was, and he's like, serendipitous. Looks at him, and everybody else looks at him and is like, "Oh fuck, dude, you are in so much trouble." And forgot to mention that although they announced the beginning of filming in May, there was also no new updates after that. Don't know why. Well, I will have to look it up when I am done this stream, bub. But anyway, moving on. Romeo and the boys or we get the scene that is not, yeah. There's a scene in between this scene and another scene where Romeo's walking over, or about to walk under a ladder, and then he sees the French guys are following him, the ones that were the friends of the guy he beat in the fight. And he starts yelling fire. It's like, fire, fire, fire. And so the Saints show up and beat up the two French guys that were going at him. And he's like, "Don't worry, man. We were just protecting our investment. You earned us $50 and whatnot." And so one of them's like, why were you yelling fire?" "Oh, I was told that you're supposed to do that on TV." "Yeah, that's only if you're getting raped." It's like, oh shit. But then there's a scene later on where this scene, which was cut down to him just walking around the ladder, he has a bottle of Irish whiskey that he wants to give the boys and whatnot because he recognized the boys. And the boys are touching up the tattoo and discussing why the heck did they cut their hair and whatnot. And then he's like, "Oh, we could dye it. What color would you dye it?" "Lighter, I guess." "You mean blonde? You mean or F word bomb or F word or F slur blonde, like gay California surfer boy. Stay going, pony boy. Stay going." This film does so much to piss off the right people, folks. What's the name of the movie again? It's Boondock Saints 2, All Saints Day. And just so you know, while the movie is around All Saints Day, which is November the 1st, I'm putting it closer to St. Patty's Day because the first movie did St. Patty's Day, but I already did a mystery review for Boondock Saints 1. So yeah. So he sees that they spill the pennies, and he's like, "I know you guys. Man, everybody knows you guys." And they're like, "Shut it." And he's like, "Hey, is it true that you guys drop a prayer before you grease somebody?" And so they slam him down, and you hear them freaking drop a prayer and put the gun to his head, and it's like, "As Almighty God, or as Almighty God created you, He now calls you home." I mean, this dude's screaming as his hand or mouth is covered, and then you hear the click of the gun, which is empty. He's like, "Oops, is he signal? We'll have to call this back." And they start laughing at him, and it is, oh my god, it's such a funny scene. And then we get them talking about wanting to be recruited, or Romeo wants to be recruited. And then you see this black cat with a white, kind of like almost priest collar with a bell. And Sean Patrick Flannery's character is like, what the fuck, man? So you know that they've been seeing this cat before, but this is the first time you see it on the film. And it's like, because this cat's now cozying up to Romeo, and Romeo is, or you don't know what it means. So that will give more context to it later as the cat shows up again. So I absolutely, he's like, it's because I'm Mexican, isn't it? Because they're saying that they're not gonna recruit him. He's like, it's because I'm Mexican, isn't it? How dare you, sir, insinuate such a thing? The fact that you're a greasy SPIC has nothing to do with it. I mean, folks, again, I'm not going to say it meaning it in a derogatory sense, but but I will quote it. It's like, the fact that you're a greasy spick has nothing to do with it. And they start laughing about it. Now, that's a direct quote, folks. Don't fricking at me. I mean, he's like, so you guys find bad guys and you kill them. That's basically it, right? Well, it's more, or it's not as simple as that. Yes, it really is. Suppose you're right. I just wish that we were more artistic about it. Yeah, well, you ain't. And so they allow him to tag along because he has connections all over Beantown near Boston, or the Mexican areas of Boston, so he's able to get information. And so after that, they cut to the police chief talking to the FBI agent Bloom, who asks Duffy or the boys to cover why the police chief shouldn't release a statement to the press. And he's asking the pertinent questions. Why is Concesio Iacovetta coming back after 8 years to draw out the Saints? Revenge. They killed his father in public. He was in prison for 5 years, or doing a nickel in prison, and the other 3 years he was spent getting the family back together. And then Dolly covers that incarceration, and Greenlee explains all the mob's top brass disappeared in record time, and how they are in hiding because the Saints are afraid they're afraid the Saints are coming back. And so the police chief has to have more convincing, and that's when Julie Benz walks him out and says, if we find out who the shooter is, the real killer is, well, Iacovetta is going to plant him in the river with a bullet through his brain, and he'll walk. So we want to get him, and we don't want him knowing that we know it's not the Saints, you know? Something good is cooking downstairs. But anyway, we then see the little man who was the killer of the priest. He puts on a rosary, and then he stands up with his shoes that have on the shoebox our little secret. It gives him 2 inches of height. This dude is 5'5", and he has a height complex, folks. He has a size complex, and it's fun to watch. And so we then cut back to the cops freaking out, wondering if Smecker told this broad anything. And it's like, we're all assuming that Smecker didn't tell her. Yeah, what? You think, or we all took an oath, the 4 of us. Yeah. And he's like, well, I was just thinking. Well, don't do that. You're no good at it. And it's like, wow, dude. Okay, my mistake. Announcement of Boondock Saints was in November of 2022, while May, or 2021, while May, they were shooting in 2022. The state for beginning production, or while May 22 was the state for beginning production. Didn't want to give any false hope. It's okay, man. It's okay. Thank you for clearing it up, though. I do appreciate that. So we then see the introduction to the Razamobile, which is a decked out. It's decked out Volkswagen Beetle, folks, with Mexican coloring that Clifton Collins' character made it. And he's like, they're just looking at his car, and he's like, oh my God, it is so fucking great. He's like, well, I thought you said your car was inconspicuous. Yeah, well, I don't like any words with spick right in the middle of it. Besides, it is where I come from. Yeah, where's that? Margaritaville. Hey, I hail from a colorful country, man. And besides, you wouldn't know talent if it pitched a 10 in your ass. And so then they just keep on mocking him, and he's like, "Oh, it's just so freaking great, folks." So then we get to the Chinese scene, or the Chinese where Yakovet is in bed with him, and the Saints or go through a plan, and it's the you see the perfect execution of the plan. And I love how Romeo's like, "I'm going to need a gun." Forget it. Hey, man, I'm part of this thing. I'm working here. So they give him a fucking 22. They give him a gun that is literally this big, folks. This big. And it's a 22. And then we cut to the investigation, like the proper formula of the first movie. You see them just before they begin, and you see the aftermath. And then while the investigation is happening, you see what happens. Well, the plan's not going to a good start. Where Romeo was supposed to knock out the guy, the guy's like, "Oh, you didn't have to bash me in the skull." Well, sorry, man. The plan was I was supposed to knock you out, but they gave me this faggoty little gun, see? And the weight isn't quite, he's like, "Christ, that's a gun? Why didn't you just point it at me and say scram?" Now, again, folks, I'm only quoting the movie. If you hear any derogatories, that's not on me. And so he's like, "Why didn't you just point it at me and say scram?" Well, Connor is so pissed off that he points the gun. He's like, "Scram! Get the fuck out of here now." Hey, boys, let's just not let this get in the way of shut the fuck up and get back behind the wheel. Or shut up and get back behind the fucking wheel. Oh, the plan's off to a great start. Oh, fuck yourself. And they're just whipping out beans out of this box. And then they find a huge brick of heroin in it. And they open it up, and freaking Sean Patrick Flannery, "That's heroin." And then his brother's like, "How the fuck would you know? Fuck you, I know shit." I mean, me and my brothers actually kind of, we don't have that perfect kind of fighting back and forth kind of stuff, but that's how we freaking talk to each other. It's like, "Fuck you, man, I know shit." But yeah, it's just so great. And Eunice is doing the investigation where Greenlee's like, or does his little imitation of Smecker and Eunice, listening to freaking Sister Christian of all things. And he's like, "It's not them." Then she pops up, "It's them." And it's like, oh, Jesus fucking Christ. So then you see how Romeo is driving the forklift and they're in the box and they're freaking fighting, man. You get the line, it's like, "It's all in the execution. And your negative attitude ain't helping any." My negative attitude? My fucking negative attitude? Yes, your negative attitude. You got to visualize the end result. You got to force it into reality. Believe. You got to fucking believe. I'm about to believe my fist up your fucking ass. And they start fighting each other in the fucking box. Just like they did in the first one in the air duct, in the air vent. And freaking Romeo can't drive the freaking forklift for shit, and he ends up lifting the fork up with the box and then or hitting the brakes just before they hit a dip, and the box falls over. This movie is so freaking hilarious, folks. And it shows them gunning down everybody except for one of them, and then they do the prayer, "For shepherds we shall be, for thee, my Lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. Our feet may swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow a river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be. In numine Patre et Filii et Spiritus Sancti." And they pop the last guy. And it's like, oh my God. So freaking, you get Dolly is like, "What's the symbolism here?" Symbolism. Yeah, what does this symbolize? Now, if you've seen the first movie, you know what that's about. He's like, "Well, it symbolizes a huge fuck up." Even though there really was no symbolism except that it there was a huge fuck up because Romeo was freaking driving around like a goddamn maniac. But anyway, it's like none of this makes sense, which is why it makes perfect sense, you know? So then we get after scene, ballistic showing a 22, and it's like I highly doubt that one of the three most lethal individuals on the planet suddenly switched to birdshot. Maybe we're reading this wrong. Maybe it's not them. And as she moves forward, freaking Dolly puts his hands behind his back with his finger crossed, and it's like, no, sir, it is them. It's like, oh boy. So, I mean, also after the each kill, you see a black and white shot of the boys prepping the eyes and crossing the arms, and you hear a prayer from or you hear a scripture from Il Duce, while the wicked stand confounded, call me with thy saints surrounded, which was this one. And then after that, we get a return of Doc, or as everybody else calls, fuck ass, because he has Tourette's. He's an old man. Now, it's the same Doc from Fraggle Rock, folks. Now, that guy, if you grew up during the 80s, or 80s and 90s like I did, you know Fraggle Rock. You know Doc from Fraggle Rock. Well, it's the same Doc. He's older now. I believe this was actually his last portrayal in a film before he died. And he's older, or he's 10 years older. He's walking with a cane, and he's like, boys! And Lethal, if you see this, you got to get a clip of this, because where it's Murphy, Norman Reedus, he's like, hey, this is our Mexican. This is like fucking hell, man. Because Lethal Lightning, folks, Lethal Lightning does a lot of pissed people off content. He does the retards in cars things and whatnot, but he also does a lot of shit that would piss off some people, but we all know it's all in good fun. So Lethal, get that quote, dude. This is our Mexican, you know, because I know you'll have use for it. Fun fact, Patrick Flanery played as Indiana Jones in Young Indiana Jones. Yes, he did. On the ABC television series. He also played in an episode of CSI. And he also played Powder, which is another movie that I did a mystery review on. So, Doc has Tourette's, and he constantly says, fuck ass! Like, he has that impulse where he yells fuck and ass. So people call him fuck ass. And so he has a speakeasy in the back of his restaurant where the boys are all having a celebration. You get the whole lobster dick scene. And then you have the boys freaking falling over drunk. And then you have Connor staring down Doc. And Doc staring down Connor. And Doc's like, not this time, you little shit. We'll see about that, old man. And then Connor's like, will somebody please come over here? And Doc says, fuck. And he's like, me up thee. And Doc says, ass. And they freaking fall out laughing, folks. I mean, it's just them having fucking hilarious fun, you know? And it is just so freaking hilarious. This is the stuff you can laugh at that you're afraid to laugh at in public. Me, however, I'm not afraid to laugh at it in public. I'll fucking laugh at it in public. But anyway, he's like, I took you down, boy. I burn you up and I turn you down. And it's just freaking hilarity. And so then we see Pop in Ireland is cutting potatoes and putting a pan over the fire. And then he's remembering his time back in the 50s as a leather worker. And we then see it's 1958 in New York City. Hold on one moment. Do I think that Sean Patrick Flanery is a good replacement for Indiana Jones if Harrison Ford retires from the role? No. No, I do not, Neozoic. I agree with Harrison Ford. Once I'm gone, he's gone. Indiana Jones is gone. Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. I'm sorry, he is. That's just the way it is. They shouldn't reboot shit. They shouldn't even have done this movie. Or the movie that they had, or the Indiana Jones 5 or whatever it is. But anyway, Pop is remembering Ireland, and the guy that they had to play him is great, the younger version of El Duce, because he does look like he could easily be a killer. And his father was a Leatherman, and they were fixing up some stuff, and then these Italian 3 mob jokers come along asking him to do something, or asking his father to do something, and he's like, I told you I can't do that, but if you need anything made out of leather, I'll be happy to oblige. Well, then they beat his head in with a hammer and scare off his workers. And Noah, which is El Duce, watches the whole thing from up above in the parlor while he's getting more leather out for the backing of the chair that he was putting together. And then you see his friend come by with a leg brace, this Italian guy named Louis, and he sees Noah cradling his father who bled to death. And this is what triggered Noah's descent into madness and his need to kill those who are getting away with crime, you know? This is what set off El Duce, what created him. I agree, Harrison Ford is the real Indiana Jones. The question was meant to be curious. That's all. It's okay, man. But I'm also going to give you a full answer too. If you ask me questions, even if out of curiosity, hey, I will accept your curiosity and I will fulfill it, or I will satisfy your curiosity. Now, you see him just scream, where Noah, after his friend asks him a question, trying to get his attention, and he just sees his friend and he just starts screaming out the shock of finding his father dead with his freaking head beat in and whatnot, blood just covering his face. It's like, what else could he have done in that situation? He's just screaming out and he's letting out all of his grief at one moment, you know? Believe me, if this dude if this dude had any superpowers, he would have probably blown up the block. But yeah, holy crap, dude, it was great. So then we get the Gorgeous George introduction. Rob Rubin, who is a comedian, did a really good job playing him, kind of like a Rocco Light. And he comes in, and the other mafia guys are all nervous and whatnot about the Chinese getting killed off, and the heroine was supposed to square their books for the next 6 months. And he's like, I need to speak to the boss right away. He's the only New York guy, and because they're in Boston. So he's like, or you see that Concesio's in a panic room, and he's like, get over here, push the talk button, numbnuts. He's pissed off that the guy's back, and so he freaking yells at him to get the fuck out, that he's not supposed to come back until the Saints are gone and dead. And George is tripping over his own gear and whatnot and such, and then he runs out, and the other guys are laughing at him. I mean, it's a nice little scene that introduces him, and then we get to the silver peso where Romeo introduces his Tio, his uncle. Now, the guy, or fun fact, the guy that plays Romeo's uncle is the same guy that plays the Brazilian tough guy in the Incredible Hulk in the MCU. The bald guy that with him and his thugs go after Bruce and trigger his first transformation. It's the same guy, and he's telling the boys that there's a bounty on their heads, 250 or $250,000 for all of them. And Romeo's like, I'm a part of this now, Teal. and you don't have to disrespect me. And they're arguing in Spanish, and so the Saints vouch for him. He's like, he's one of us. Is he? And is he pulling his own weight? A lot of heart and whatnot. So he gets the praise and the validation from his uncle. And so the conversation turns towards Gorgeous George. He's the head guy to go to find Yakavetta. And he'll put it out on the wire to try to find him. So then we get to the next scene where they're all in Romeo's truck, and he's crying because he got the validation from his uncle. And the brothers notice this, and he's like, is anybody hungry? I mean, maybe we should go to an IHOP. And Murphy's like, shut up. Or Connor's like, shut up. Romeo's crying. And they just start laughing and get Romeo to calm down. He's laughing about it. He's like, fucking assholes. Shut up. And whatnot. Opinions on Overnight, which is a 2003 film, a documentary film. Oh, yeah. I have watched that a while back. I would have to watch it again. I think, or I'll have to watch it again to give you a more detailed opinion on it. So I can't give you one right now. Sorry about that. But I do remember that exists, and I'll have to watch it again to give you a better answer on that. Sorry. So, getting back to the review. Eunice visits Gorgeous George, who's at a massage parlor, and she takes over for the masseuse, and she takes or rolls the blanket down his ass, and then smacks his ass with the with this huge paddle that says Happy Fingers. And he gets up and he's like, "You fucking bitch!" And so she pulls a gun on him. She's like, "What the fuck did you just say to me?" And so she sits him down, riles him up, saying that you're expendable and Concesio doesn't give a shit about you. Basically, riling him up to get him to get nervous and such. And it's like while they're sipping on shrimp cocktail and cannoli, you're down here, you're expendable, George. You're the only New York guy. And why do you think he has you down here? So you can get popped, and they'll be better off without you, man. That's basically how it is. Riling him up to unsettle him. And it's a nice little scene between the two. And it's extended in the director's cut, but it didn't even really need to be. However, I understand why they did it with the alternate takes. So we then cut back to Pop, who is cooking and stuff, and then he's feeling the call again. As we get another look at the past with Pop's friend and Pop or Noah in the past, they found the guys who killed his father, and they have, or hold on one second. There. He has one guy with a knife held at one dude's throat while pointing a revolver down on another or one of the other guys. And the guy that killed his father is just a sociopath. Now, this scene is also extended, which shows that the guy is like I don't give a shit. Just deal the cards. This guy doesn't, or he's not going to do anything. And they try pleading to his Italian friend, and he's like, he's my friend, so it's like, fuck him, fuck his friend. He ain't going to do it. He doesn't have the balls. Well, Noah proves that he does have the balls by slitting the dude's throat, putting capping the other guy, and then shooting the other dude in the neck. And you see that this is the beginning of Il Duce's body counts. So then you go back and you see him vigorously shining his leather coat or his leather gun coat with the different gun holsters in the coat itself. And basically, this is symbolizing that the call has been answered. Is the sequel better or less superior than the first one? It's not as good as the first one. The first one is by far way better. It was not hindered by any studio. He was allowed to do what he wanted, and he did it exactly how he wanted. It was an independent film. Neozoic. So we then get the tribute to Rocco scene where they visit Rocco's crypt and they're doing a prayer for Rocco and whatnot. And that's what that is. And so, sorry, there's something on the floor that I needed to get rid of. So then we see Rocco, or the picture of Rocco, and you see his hair is up a little bit. And then Murph, Norman Reedus, he's like, why'd they use his mugshot? And then you see Connor, he's like, what? No. Yeah, do you remember when he told us that he got all embarrassed because that guy had a hold of his hair in the picture? Aye. That's an arm. Because you see that there's an arm in there, but it's whited out. You could clearly see it. And he's like, that's an arm. And then they start laughing their asses off. And it's like, oh my God, man. Now, in the director's cut, Romeo comes up, and he's like, am I as good as this guy or what? And Connor stops him immediately. He's like, you, sir, are no David Della Rocco. And then we see the cat is back in the crypt, looking at him and just walking around. And it's like, what the fuck, man? They start freaking out. And Romeo's like, hey, isn't that the cat that was on the bone? He's like, no, it's a different fucking cat. It's like, it has to be a different cat. They're freaking out. They don't know how to handle it. Now, then there's this stupid interaction with a fan that is down in a crypt. And honestly, that could have been cut out. That could have easily been cut out. However, they chose to keep it in. That's one thing that they didn't really need to do. But the uncle calls Romeo and they give him Gorgeous George's location at a tanning salon where he's getting his fake bake. And so they immediately go there, and you have Murphy sitting on the tanning bed, crushing Gorgeous George, while Connor's like, that's a lovely singing voice for you, Georgie. We want you to sing for us now. Can you do that? Can you do that? And so they're ready to go full stigmata on this dude because this is it gets very serious here, where it's like, we want the name of the shooter that you motherfuckers used on the priest. And we're back. Okay, good. Sorry about that, folks. So the scene is very serious, and they have his guns, or their guns, straight to Gorgeous George's hands. They're about to shoot holes right through his hands right here, and he's against the wall like this and whatnot. And they're telling him, it's like, where the fuck is Yakavetta hiding? He gives it up like that. He's like, Prudential Building, 40th floor. while they're choking him with their own, or with his own cross. And so they or he's like, we don't know. But I do like how it's like, it's the truth. Nobody knew about it because they knew that, or nobody would have okayed it. The shooter's an independent contractor. That's all I freaking know. And so they get the full info from George. And the funny thing about this is George is wearing a pink Speedo. And he's like, European cut, far superior. And then they're setting up a meeting place for the racket chiefs. Now, there was a scene earlier where he goes to his racket chief or Jojo Rama, to help set up the Brulios for North and South for the meetup. And that scene's funny in itself, too. I'm sorry I skipped it, but we will cover it on Mara Jade's stream, most likely. So, it's a nice little panic room joke there, too, because Concesio has a panic room. But anyway, they're setting up at the Silver Peso, where Romeo's uncle's restaurant. And it's like, my uncle's restaurant is closed for tonight. I got a key. How about that, George? Do you like Mexican? Doesn't matter to me. I think I just shit my European cut Speedos. It's just like, oh, fuck. So now, so we're moving on with the investigation as well. The investigation continues, and we find they get a partial print on a rosary bead. So they have it pushed through or have everybody, Interpol and all of them, checking it. And we then get to the Silver Peso, where Eunice is going to drop in, but we see the racket chiefs are all there saying, a spickaroo, more cocktail, or more salsa and yada yada, and they say, let's get some, or more pepe, or calling them pepe and spicker. He's like, I'm getting spickarooed and pepe out there, man. These are quotes from the movie, folks, so don't get all pissed off and whatnot. And so they're waiting on all of them to arrive, and they have Gorgeous George freaking hiding and making sure he identifies each one of them. And he's like, oh my gosh, you guys are gonna, or this is such embarrassing shit. Don't worry, we worked on a sheep farm, smelled way worse, although this is right up there. So then they're painting on him and back, and they're ready. Okay, the gang's all here, and freaking Romeo's like, give me my fucking BB gun, because he just wants to kill these guys really freaking badly. So I know, Rome, you earned your stripes. So they toss him one of the silencers, and he's like, oh, hey, tighten it up, because he's getting all emotional. And I love how he continues to get emotional when he's doing the heavy shit, you know? It's like, hey, tighten it up. All right, man. And so they all get in there, and the people are wondering, where's Gorgeous George? And so they rolled George out on a friggin' roller, or plate tray roller, and he has the phrase "Aaron go brag" painted in green on the back of him, and everybody has their guns. They're all pointing their guns down at him. It's like, Aaron go brag. What the fuck is that? It's Irish for you're fucked. Of course, it doesn't really mean that. It is or it means Ireland forever. Aaron go brag. So we then see the replay, and you see Romeo's like, Carico, Mexico. He's like, Que viva Mexico, bitches. And then he does a little celebration. And Georgie wakes up, and he's like, I'm fucking born again and shit. So what do we do with him? You know what? I think we're going to let God decide. So Connor does the whole Russian roulette thing with George. And he puts one bullet in the chamber, spins the chamber, puts it in, holds it up, and holds Georgie taped to the thing. And he's like, you best be right with your Jesus, boy. pulls the trigger, nothing, or clicks. Well, praise be to Jesus. Georgie, yeah, you know all good boys go to heaven. And they let him go. He's gone. George is never to be seen again. But man, oh man, special features, folks. Special features. Contest winner. You'll love it. But anyway, trust me, we're going to discuss it tomorrow night. I'm making sure that, or I will tell Mary Jade, it's like, we do need to discuss that joke. So, little man is waiting outside, and lets Yakovetta's guys get shot. And Eunice shows up after he's about to shoot the boys after George leaves. So Eunice shows up shooting him, and he runs, and introductions are made. And then she gets she had a warning from the top brass: if the Saints are here and there's too many bodies showing up or lining up or piling up, rather, sorry, that the feds are going to step in. Well, she has to redress the scene to make it look like it wasn't from the Saints, and you see them doing it. And so she shows, or she gives a different take on the scene, letting them know that they all killed each other. This was not the work of the Saints. They're all fighting over Yakovetta's throne. He's lost control of the streets. Oh God, this is bad. This lemony water. It's bland as hell, but I need to do it. Medicine, folks. So we then get the three boys going over, and they found out the results of the shooter, and 5-5. But here's the problem: somebody pushed it through. Look at the date, 2 months after 9/11, and it's like, that ain't possible. And it needs to be explained to Greenlee, because Greenlee doesn't get it. Somebody pushed or maneuvered it through the system during the highest alert in U.S. history. And Yakoveta is just a gangster. He doesn't have the juice to do that. So you get the first hint that there is somebody higher up the food chain than Yakoveta. Which you also had that hint when the little guy called the guy. But anyway, they then go to the Silver Peso, and they see Doc, or they go to Doc McGinty's, and they see the boys. The boys do a nice little ambush on them with beer and whatnot. And the cops now learn that Agent Bloom has been on their side the whole time. So it's a nice little scene. But they discuss how they're going after Yakoveta at the Prudential Building in 48 hours, because there's a chance that he knows that they have identified the shooter. So I absolutely love how Yakoveta is fearing the worst. He's like, either that wily old man is not as smart as he think he is, or he played me from the get. Do you think he played me? And we then see the next scene where they're at the Irish arms dealer. Oh my God, folks! Desert Eagle silencers for the brothers, and El Jefe Para Ordnance 45 ACPs for Romeo, with the Mexican flag grips. And he's like, "I'll take these." You've been crying again? Yeah, tears of joy. Those are queer. How much? Oh, you boys are on the house. And so he's like, all right, well, let's see. And you see the guns. Wow. And he's like, what, you saying I'm gay? No, you just hail from her. Hey, you don't know me. Do these make me look gay? He holds the guns up. And the Irish guy, without missing a beat, he looked like he could have seen one up close. And they start laughing, but they cut to the aftermath of the Prudential Building massacre, where all the people are dead, and it's 17 people. And it's like, oh crap. So Kunstler comes in to interrupt the investigation because he was the top up. This dude's name is Kunstler. KuntSler. And I'm like, that has to be a joke. Please tell me that has to be a joke. And this dude is the most inept FBI agent, but I don't know why or how he managed to get or be an authority over Eunice. But she's like, well, how about you tell us what happened here? Well, the glass was shot out and the body or the shooting happened in this direction. And she's like, there are three things wrong with your story. Dolly or David. David points out that the glass was shot inward, otherwise it would have shot outward, so that doesn't fucking make sense. Duffy, or Dolly, rather. The blood shows that the blood is more in towards the room, which means that these people were being shot at from outside of the building. So it doesn't make sense how the blood, he's like, or how the blood would be how you're describing. And Duffy, trick question, he only fucked up twice. There is no third fuck up. So it's like, holy shit, man. She literally got these guys taught up to where they're better than a fucking FBI agent. Basically almost Smecker level of investigation, you know? So she then describes how it all went down, and we see what's going on. Romeo wants a tagline. So he's asking this janitor who he's got tied up in the freaking place for a tagline. And while they're doing that, the brothers were in the elevator with him before he did that. He's having another emotional moment, and then he's like, "This is you. You better fucking be on time." So they let him out, and you get the famous line, "Are you ready for this shit, my dear brother?" And you see Murph bring it up. Let's do some gratuitous violence. I love that line, dude. Let's do some gratuitous violence. It's just awesome. So they're all on a scaffold. Creative. It happened to be a creative plan. And they're having a hard problem with it. It's like, what the fuck kind of plan is this? And here I am again, all caught up in your stupid fucking rope. What is it with you and the rope anyway? It happened to work well last time, so shut it. And he's like, it's probably some stupid shit you got from a movie. Oh, you didn't get this from a movie, did you? And I love the look on Sean Patrick Flannery's face. He's like, the Irish sanction from me, or with Clint Eastwood. And it fucking worked like a charm for him. I fucking know. And then they see the black cat in the building. And Connor's ready to shoot the cat. He's like, oh, fuck this. And Murphy's like, no! What? What do you think is going to happen? I don't know, but I don't want to know. He's like, I don't know, but I don't want to know. It's like, you don't want to shoot the cat. It's just so fucking hilarious. And so the scaffolding breaks, so they couldn't lower themselves down. So they're like, oh my God, or we need to count it up. If we're even a few seconds late, Romeo's dead. And this guy's, he's like, oh fuck, I'm tapped out. I can't come up with the tagline. And so they end up improvising because they have to go in without the scaffolding. And Yakovetta's talking to all these guys. This one dude has eyes tattooed in the back of his bald head. And Yakovetta's like, you are going to need those. And when the boys start swinging in, Yakovetta runs for his panic room, which is bulletproof and all that. And the gopher, his messenger guy, shoves him out of the way and jumps into the panic room, saving his life. And they put Yakovetta on his knees after the boys and Romeo do the shooting. And the look on Judd Nelson's face, where it is just absolute terror, folks. It is absolute terror, where he is absolutely scared to death. This is what happened to his father. It's like, oh my God, this is happening, and my father died in this way. And so his last words, as they were getting ready to kill him, "Vaffanculo," basically "fuck you" in Italian. And then he crosses himself, and taglineless Romeo's like, "Who ordered the whoop ass fajitas?" Fucking stupid, completely retarded. And so Julie Benz walks up to him. Eunice walks up to him. "Is that the best you can do?" I I didn't. I couldn't. Shh. Kick down the door, didn't you? And then you hear the ding dong and him with a laugh. I made these two into gifs too, boys and girls. So if you want to see these or that gif, I can put them on. Just go to Giphy. I do believe I have the link for my Giphy in the description of this. Go to my Giphy and go to the collections for Boondock Saints 1 and 2. You'll see it. How would you compare Julie Benz's role in Boondock Saints 2 with her other roles such as Sarah Miller in Rambo, Darla from Buffy the Vampire Slayer? Well, considering I have actually started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, she did a good job in that, and she's a very different character in Rambo. Julie Benz is a good actress. I will say that right now. She's a very good actress. Neozoic. So then they redo the execution of Yakavetta, and they shoot him, and then he's like, "Ding dong, motherfuckers! Ding dong!" Fucking hey, you said it. And you get the better reaction, and so it's like, okay, he now has his tagline. And so she's like, "And that gentleman is the fat lady singing." Well, Jimmy Gopher, who's still in the panic room after she concludes her investigative thoughts on what happened, grabs her, and all the guys are freaking out. It's like, you could be in there touching her and shit. And so she has a freaking arm lock on him. He spills his beans that Yakavetta is a fucking idiot and that it was an old man, some mafia oracle, who helped orchestrate the events leading up to the priest getting whacked, to the family getting built back up, to the rivalry of the Northeast and Southeast. And he only ever called him the old man, except for one time where he called him the Roman. And so now you know who the Roman is, and you see the little man, the shooter who killed the priest in the beginning of the movie, hiding behind a freaking fire hydrant, folks. He's hiding behind a fire hydrant. This man is so small, he can hide behind a fire hydrant. Obviously not really, but they just continue to make the little man jokes at his expense with that little gimmick in there. And he also has these two cuts across his nose where he got whipped with the rosary because the old man found out that he screwed up. And so he whipped him twice in the face, but you don't see it happen in the film. They actually don't show it. But that's basically, you see him, or the movement of him going down like this, but you don't see what happens after. So he's also shaved his head because he had the hairdo, or he had the flat top hairdo. And then we get to the boys at Docks, and Greenlee shows up and gets a shotgun in the back after he's like, "Seco Medic, I said." Apparently, he must have gotten lucky with Eunice because she liked him. There is a deleted scene where she's broken up over him dying, and it's like they must have freaking had sex without everybody else knowing. But anyway, the shooter comes in, shoots or forces the boys behind the counter, and then he grabs Doc. And this guy thinks that Doc is their father. Well, he certainly learns real quick that it isn't, because their father shows up in the scene. And I love or a lot of people call it Russian roulette with the one bullet trick. Well, this is Russian roulette with an Irish twist, where it's two guns pointed at each other's head, one round each. Each of them get a turn. And he knows. It's like, where's the old man? Never. And I love the reactions of the boys after they go to Greenlee and Greenlee dies out. And they see their father with a gun to his head and a gun to the other guy's head. And it's like, the other guy pulls the trigger once. After pulling the hammer back, nothing happens. So they're like, oh my God, man, I'm going to blow this motherfucker's head off right now. And I love Billy Connolly, how he raises his voice. He's like, Connor! Son, Daddy's working. I love it. It's just so freaking great. And so the little guy wants to be very famous. He's like, make me famous, make me famous, and pulls the trigger again. Nothing happens. So one more time for Il Duce. He pulls the hammer back, and well, now the guy's freaking out. He's like, where is he? And he won't do it, but he's afraid because he knows this is his last shot. And so he tries saying, Bafankula, boom. Now, during this whole scene, you also see the brothers get down on their knees, and they're praying and whatnot. And they got the guns in hands. And when the trigger's pulled with the other guy, and no shot, you see them perk up. They're like getting ready to shoot because they told them, no matter how this turns out, you fucking die today. I mean, this is it's such a great scene, folks. This scene is holy. It's like, woof, you don't know who's going to freaking come out of this. So then you see the heavenly scene where after Greenlee dies, you see the boys are kind of like in this other plane in a dream, and Rocco comes up to him, and that fucking cat walks by. So now you know the cat was essentially Rocco looking out for him, cuddling up to Romeo on the boat. It's like, I like this guy. He could probably help you. At the crypt, it's like, what the hell are you guys doing at my crypt? And then at the Prudential building, good luck, boys. I'll see you in a little bit. You know? It's like, I just love how that cat goes by, you know? And you see the whole look what men can do shit. I can't describe this scene. This scene is so fucking great, folks. I'll describe it on Mara's scene where we describe it, because it's just how they're sick of all the self-help 12-step hippie bullshit, and how men can look. It's like, men build things, then we die. It's in our fucking DNA. Hard men doing hard shit. And Rocco's like, and that gives me a hard on. Not in a gay way or anything. But the last line of it, men do not pout. Men do not cry. Men jack you. Or men do not cry. Men do not pout. Men jack you in the fucking jaw and say, then Greenlee, who just died, rolls up in a hockey getup. Thanks for coming out. Smacking a hockey puck right at the camera, busting the boys out of their dream. And then we get the scene where Louis, or not Louis, but Noah, their father, tells them the whole truth of what happened, how he continued to, or what led him down his path, and that Louis, his friend, who is also the old man, this mafia oracle, set him up back in 75, set him up. He also helped him plan out the murders, and he also was the one, or he's the one who killed the people, while Louis was the one who set up the kills, who planned it all, or who was the brains of the organization, or of the operation. Well, he then got set up and sent into 25 for life, and his son asked him, why didn't you flip on him? The guy fucked you. And he told him, because he had learned of the birth of my sons. Because it also shows a hand pushing up a photo of their mother and the two babies. So it's like, that's the reason why he never flipped on him, because he's basically saying, if you flip on me, your boys are dead. So it's the ultimate reason. He's like, why did he turn, or why did he betray you? I can't wait to ask him. So we learn that this guy is now ID'd, and Agent Bloom is suspended, so she ends up getting or backdooring the FBI database to get the information on where the Roman is. But the FBI will see that she's going rogue because she also she ends up giving the information to the Saints, and they do their last prayer at church. And I got to hurry this up, folks, because dinner's ready. But anyway, skipping through the minutia, you get Louis and Noah face to face again at Noah's house, or at Louis's house, the Roman's house, the old man's house. And it's played by an actor who in real life is a fucking asshole and is dead now, Peter Fonda. And he plays this mafioso Italian guy very well. I mean, it's the biggest name at the time. You got a big name actor in this movie. You got your big name. Even though Willem Dafoe is also a pretty big name, but he comes by later. But anyway, he explains, he's like, I knew you'd come. And he's like, you know my reasons. You're a destroyer, no, but you think it's because your father. What about this? And he throws him that picture, that very same picture. You weren't there to raise your boys, yet they turned out exactly like you. It's in your blood. You're a killer, Noah. And then he explains that he betrayed him. He was using him to help create the organized crime empire. And he then found out that they betrayed him, and they cast him out because he was no longer of use to him, because he betrayed his own friend. It's like, I had no use for you, so I sent you in, but then they had no use for me without you. So that's why I orchestrated the priest. That's why I had your sons and you destroy the Yakovetas for me, to clear my way to the top, essentially, so that he could be the top brass, even for a little bit, because he's like, so that I could have a little inch of the power, the piccolo peso. And we then get the shootout, and he's like, and everybody, you see some great shots here. You see the boys shooting out everybody that's there waiting for him. There's one guy that's out there. He's like, why don't we just go now? It's just one fucking guy. And the other dude who actually looks at me, he's like, are you fucking nuts? This dude has kills fucking mobsters, probably eats them for breakfast. It's like, it's just one fucking guy. It's just one fucking old guy. Yeah, but that fucking old guy wasted you in a heartbeat, dude. So, yes. I love how during the whole shootout, Peter Fonda's just sitting in this chair as the whole place is crashing down around him. There's this beautiful shot of the angel wings being blasted off of the angel. And the boys get shot up a bit. And so does Il Duce, their father, as does Romeo. Now, Romeo also has a shotgun where he's holding the one shell and the pump, or it's a pump action shotgun, where he's holding it right by the intake, pushes in, cocks the weapon, boom. It's tactical shit that military and law enforcement use when breaching, if need be. It's a great way of fully setting it up, So you then, or after all of the shooting is done, Murphy goes to his father, Norman Reedus, and they're calling him, and he's like, take me to him now. And so they bring their father over to Noah, who's sitting there, and he's like, I will see you in a minute, Louis, who's sitting there, and he's like, I'll see you in a minute, Louis. And then he shoots Louis, and that's the end of Peter Fonda's character. And the death scene of Billy Connolly's character, Il Duce, their father, is so freaking beautiful. You see that, I mean, the emotions there, man. Freaking Norman Reedus can turn on the tears like that, man. That's such a great acting ability to actually be able to turn on your tears. And there are other those who can't turn on the tears, who try so hard to turn on the tears yet can't, and it ends up fucking them over for the rest of their lives. Amber, but yeah, it is so great. I mean, I've looked for a clip of him dying. I can't find it anywhere on YouTube where he's like, "Look, boys, it's so beautiful." He's just looking off into space. It's a beautiful day, and then he fades out and he dies. And it is such a beautiful scene. But so then they get up and they're getting out of there, and the police, the FBI, and all of them are waiting for them. And there's a final narration, and also Romeo's been shot to shit too. While the FBI and them are moving in, the SWAT team and stuff, they find Romeo, his hands up, so he's alive. And then you see the boys walking out, holding each other out to all the guns on them. All the police are pointing their guns and whatnot. The SWAT's moved in already through the building and are right at the doors with them, pointing their guns at them. And they're looking at the cops. And you hear the narration of Il Duce. And they that holdeth my name shall come with the shaking of the earth and the roiling of the oceans. Now, there is a moment, folks, where you feel that the saints could at any moment raise their weapons to go out in a blaze of glory. You feel that that might actually fucking happen because they are staring daggers at these cops. You see Kunstler pointing his gun with the radio in hand. Freaking, he's scared shitless. So you don't know what's going to happen here. Well, then the boys just lift up their guns just a little bit and drop them. They're bleeding out too. They got blood running down their legs and shit. And so then they're arrested. Well, fade out there and cut to Eunice Bloom, who's on the run. And the priest that was in Ireland with the boys at the beginning of the movie is helping her out with going to a monastery, and a guy is out fishing in the back, and she's like, "You showed up, or the moment I needed help, you showed up with papers and passports in hand." I'm not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, but even that to me is weird. The Lord works in mysterious ways. And she's going to a monastery in St. Escassu. And she's like, a monastery? Well, monasteries are protected by the Holy See. They are immune to search, or to searches and warrants and whatnot. You can't search a church, folks. Legal writ, you can't do it. Not even with a freaking warrant. Warrants, or the church is immune to search because it's a sanctuary within a sanctuary. So she's like, you keep saying we. Who's we? And then you hear this very familiar voice if you've seen the first movie. You ready to go? I hear they party pretty hard at that monastery. And it's freaking Willem Dafoe, who is Paul Smecker, who's said to be dead. So she's pissed off that he's alive. She's like, I attended your funeral, you son of a bitch. And so he gets up after she's like, fuck your fish, what's going on here? He's like, you are exposed, young lady. You're a bright woman, Eunice. That's why I chose you. And so it's time for you to put your thinking cap on and tell me, what do you think is going on? We got the financial backing of the world's biggest organization in the world and two CEOs worthy of the public trust. So what do you think is going on? You want to get him out. I want to get him out, get him back to work, take this thing to a whole new level. And he then asks, where are they being held? Well, the boys are at the Hogue, the maximum security prison in Boston. And they're in the ICU, or they're in the hospital unit where they're waking up. Raza is out cold still with a breathing mask over him. And they look over at the guard who has his weapon, and finger on the trigger. However, he takes it off the trigger and gives them a nod, basically like, I respect you for what you did. You can get up and move. And they're like, well, we better get that, or we better do it fast because those boys ain't safe in there. And they're looking out at at the prison population in the yard, and are in the yards looking up at them like, oh, we fucking are gonna kill you. And you see the boys, you see Sean Patrick Flannery going like this, and Norman Reedus going like this, and then it goes straight to credits. Now, folks, theatrical version of this film, I would put around a 6 out of 10. It doesn't pass. Director's cut, 7 out of 10. This movie is flawed. There are some writing, there are some moments in this movie that I would still have cut out. However, there are parts that I would have kept in. But for now, if they would have cut out the parts that I want this movie or that I feel weighed it down a little bit, this movie would have been around an 8. This movie is by no measure perfect. However, it is still a great fun movie to watch. It's not award worthy, but this movie is so fucking awesome. So yes, while flawed, you got some problems with shaky cam. You have some problems with unnecessary scenes that should have been cut out, even out of the director's cut. Like that fanboy asshole in the crypt. And you have it's just, they should have put in translations without the need of subtitles, folks. They should have put the translations on the screen itself, like they did with the first movie. So that is a problem there. But otherwise, subjectively, this movie is a 10 out of 10. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. And moviegoer, it's 10 out of 10. You're not bored. You're laughing your ass off. It's fucking awesome. It's shoot 'em up fun. And I cannot wait for the third movie if the third movie is continuous or is going to go. To go back to the thing here, Neozoic has a question. How would you compare Boondock Saints 1 and 2's gunfights with other films, fights such as John Wick series, John Woo films, and Hardboiled? Yes, Troy Duffy has a gift for gunfights. Let's just say that. Now, I think that this one measures up to those movies as well, to top films like John Wick and whatnot. John Wick has great cinematography with his gun fu and gunfights and stuff. So it's going to be hard pressed to top those. But for the most part, I think that this movie does a good job with the gunfights. Now, hint for the next week, folks, is the first hint, and the rest of the hints will be throughout Twitter over the week, is Arthurian. Now, remember the theme for this year, or for this month, is green or Irish. So think one of those themes, and Arthurian. Don't put it in the chat, because I won't read it if you got it. But if you know it, you know it. And I'll definitely see you then. Tonight, I will be at the Barroom Podcast on Society Reviews channel, where we're discussing the controversies of Hollywood. Tomorrow night, I'll be discussing this movie in further detail with Jade Shadow for the 1s and 2s. And yeah, I'm definitely going to be trying to get more content out for you guys. This kidney stone has been hampering me a little bit. I am sorry, so you're going to have to be patient with me, folks. But for the most part, I'm doing my best to manage it. And thank you all for being patient and supporting me. I could use your help with getting my watch time up. I'm trying to get to 4,000. I'm stuck at 3,100 area. So watch my playlists if you can. It will help. You can catch up on all the mystery reviews leading up to this one, and including this one. It will help get my hours up. I appreciate all help, folks, and even subs too. If you want to help get more subs, I'm at 1,230 now. Wouldn't mind getting either 1,300 or maybe even 1,500 by the end of the year. But if you can help with that too, thank you so much. Thank you to Neozoic for being in the chat. Vanja, Kamen Rider, Ruben, Cassie from Cult Classic Cage, Cannoli, Sasquatch, thank you for coming in. And until next time, folks, you all have a wonderful day. Yes, I can. Or yes, indeed. The bar room's going to be freaking lit tonight, folks. So definitely tune in to Society of Reviews channel tonight. So, yep. Take it easy, folks. You all have a wonderful day. And always remember, stay humble.